We are tackling a book today that, quite frankly, can be a little uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable because it's, badly written or anything. It's a total classic, but because it holds up a mirror to the American idea of success. And, well, it tells us point blank that we've been doing the math all wrong.
We really have.
We are breaking down The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko.
And it's uncomfortable, I think, because it just completely attacks the visual language of success we've all been taught.
What do you mean by that, the visual language?
Well, we're trained, by movies, by ads, to see a fancy car or a bespoke suit, and our brain just immediately goes, wealth.
Right. Success.
Exactly.
Right.
But this book uses 20 years of hard data to say, no, not really. Usually that just means high consumption, high spending. It's a totally different metric.
And to really get how deep that misconception goes, we have to start with the story of the authors themselves. They got it wrong first.
Oh, yeah, I love this part. It's the perfect setup.
It is, because it shows even the experts were fooled by the same images. So, okay, Stanley and Danko are getting ready to interview their first focus group. And these aren't just millionaires, they're decamillionaires.
People with a net worth of at least $10 million. And you have to remember, this is back in the 90s.
Right. So that's like, what, 20 or 30 million in today's money? It's an astronomical amount. These are the heavy hitters.
For sure.
So the researchers are, they're kind of panicked. They're thinking, we can't just put these people in a normal conference room with a pitcher of tap water.
It felt disrespectful, I guess.
Yeah. So they go all out. They rent a posh penthouse on the east side of Manhattan. They hire a gourmet caterer to put out this incredible spread that they think is going to match the clientele.
And we're talking, what was it, pâté and
4 kinds of pâté, 3 kinds of high-end caviar, and cases of 1970 Bordeaux wine.
Wow.
They are setting the stage for what they thought wealth looked like.
Which is really just them projecting their own bias, right?
Yeah.
They're assuming that if you have $10 million, your palate just automatically shifts to caviar and vintage French wine. This is what they would want, maybe.
Of course. And then reality walks in the door. The first subject arrives. They call him Mr. Bud in the book. He's 69 years old.
Okay.
The authors, trying to be good hosts, they immediately offer him a glass of this amazing 1970 Bordeaux.
And what does he say?
Mr. Bud looks at the wine, looks back at them, and delivers this just classic line. He goes, I drink scotch and 2 kinds of beer free and Budweiser.
That's amazing. It's the perfect deflation of that whole scene.
Completely. And it wasn't just him. Over the next 2 hours, the authors just watched in horror as these decamillionaires completely ignored the pâté, ignored the expensive wine.
And just ate the crackers.
He just ate the crackers.
Yeah.
By the end of the night, the researchers are sitting there surrounded by thousands of dollars of untouched gourmet food, and they're just staring at a pile of cracker crumbs.
And that was the aha moment.
That was the data point, wasn't it? The crumbs were the data.
That was the epiphany. They realized they were confusing income with wealth. They were confusing the display of economic power with the actual possession of it.
That's a great way to put it.
They figured out that the kind of person who accumulates $10 million is very rarely the kind of person who needs to signal their status with expensive pâté.
Which brings us right to the core thesis of the whole book, which they sum up with that great old Texan phrase, big hat, no cattle.
Right. It's such a perfect image. If you see a guy in a 10-gallon hat and these pristine, expensive boots, he probably doesn't own a ranch.
He's just playing character.
He's playing a character. The guy who actually has the cattle is probably wearing a dirty baseball cap and driving a beat-up truck. And, in financial terms, we've been conditioned by Hollywood and Madison Avenue to believe wealth equals hyperconsumption.
The mansion, the Rolex, the luxury lease on a German car.
All of it. But when you actually look at the spreadsheet, which is what we're going to do today, the profile is, well, it's boringly different.
It is boring. Most millionaires in America are not in Beverly Hills or the Hamptons. They live in middle-class neighborhoods, they drive domestic cars, and they wear cheap watches.
And that's really the mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're not here to give you stock tips or anything like that. We're here to deconstruct the profile of the actual American millionaire, not the Instagram version.
Right.
We need to shift the objective in our heads from high income, which is just a high-speed treadmill, to high net worth, because that is where you find real financial freedom.
Okay, so let's start right there with that distinction, because I think even for a lot of pretty savvy people, this still gets muddy.
It does.
We all know the dictionary definition, right? Income is what comes in, net worth is what you keep. But the book makes this really powerful argument that high income is often the enemy of building wealth.
It's the high income, low net worth trap. And it's so easy to fall into. Think about it. If you're a high earner, say you're a specialized attorney or a corporate VP making $300,000 a year, society basically hands you a script.
A script for how you're supposed to live.
Exactly. You are expected to live in a certain zip code. You are expected to drive a German import. You're expected to send your kids to that specific private school. And all of that expectation creates what we could call status overhead.
Status overhead. I like that. So the cost of just looking the part eats up the surplus that you would have used to build actual wealth.
Precisely. The book actually categorizes people into 3 groups based on how efficient they are at this. You have the PAW, the UAW, and the AAW.
The acronyms are a little dated, a little clunky, but let's unpack the concepts because they are super useful. PAW is prodigious accumulator of wealth.
These are your super savers. These are people who have a net worth that is twice what you'd expect for their age and income. They are just punching way, way above their weight class financially.
And on the flip side, you have the UAW.
The under-accumulator of wealth. These are the people with the big hats and no cattle. They might earn $500,000 a year, but they have very little actual equity.
Because it's all going out the door.
It's all flowing out the door to service their lifestyle. The book says they possess 1/2 or less of the expected wealth for their demographic.
Okay, but how do I know where I stand? I mean, I think most people think they're doing okay. The authors provide a formula for this. It's a bit blunt, but it's a really good reality check.
It's a blunt instrument for sure, but it works as a yardstick. They call it the wealth equation, and it goes like this. You multiply your age by your realized pre-tax annual household income. Then you divide that number by 10.
Okay, let's run the numbers on that. Let's say I'm listening to this, I'm 41 years old, and my household brings in, say, $143,000 a year.
Okay, so you take 41 times 143,000, that gives you about 5.8 million.
Right.
Then you divide that by 10. You get $586,300. And that number right there is your expected net worth just to be considered an AEW, an average accumulator of wealth.
So to be average at 41 making that salary, you should have almost $600,000 saved up.
That's the benchmark. And if you want to be a PA, a prodigious accumulator, you need to be double that. So roughly 1.2 million.
I have a feeling a lot of people hearing that number, nearly $600,000 for an average 41-year-old making that salary, are feeling a pit in their stomach right now. That feels really high.
It feels high because our society has completely normalized debt and low savings rates.
Yeah.
But you have to remember what that number represents. It represents time. If you're 41, you've probably been working for nearly 20 years.
Sure.
And if you've been making good money that whole time and you have nothing to show for it but a leased car and a closet full of nice clothes, that formula just exposes the inefficiency. It's basically asking, where did all the capital go?
So to illustrate who actually hits these numbers, the book introduces us to this character named Johnny Lucas. Now, if you passed Johnny on the street, you would not look twice.
No way. Johnny is the anti-influencer. He's 57, he runs a janitorial contracting firm, and he has a net worth over $2 million. A classic Paul. But here's the key. He lives in a modest house in a middle-class neighborhood and drives a 3-year-old Ford pickup truck.
But is that just because he's, cheap? Or is there some kind of strategic advantage to his lifestyle?
Oh, there is a massive strategic advantage, and this is so important. Johnny's business is cleaning office buildings. His clients are property managers and corporate types.
Okay.
So imagine if Johnny showed up to bid on a new cleaning contract wearing a $2,000 Armani suit and driving a brand new Porsche. What happens?
The client is immediately going to think he's charging way too much.
Exactly. They'll think, I'm paying for his Porsche. Or they'll think he's completely out of touch. Why is this guy in a silk suit inspecting my mop buckets? His low stats appearance is actually a business asset.
So it keeps his overhead low because he doesn't need to spend on signals.
And it helps him close deals. Now, contrast that with the high-powered lawyer who feels he must wear the $2,000 suit to be taken seriously by his clients. That lawyer has a cost of doing business that Johnny just doesn't have.
It's so interesting because Johnny Lucas is, by all accounts, objectively boring. The authors make a great point that stories like his just don't sell newspapers.
Right.
We want the story of the lottery winner or the tech founder who bought a private island. We don't want to hear about the janitor who saved 20% of his income for 30 years straight.
But boring is where the money is. That's the secret. Wealth is almost never a lightning strike. It's a long, slow, boring accumulation. And that brings us to the actual mechanism of that accumulation. It's not just about earning, it's about playing defense.
I love the sports analogy they use for this, offense versus defense.
It's really the only way to look at it. Your income is your offense. That's you putting points on the board.
The higher your income, the better your offense.
Right. But your spending is your defense. You can have the best offense in the NFL, making $1 million a year. But if your defense gives up $1,001,001, you still lose the game.
You're insolvent.
You're insolvent. The Millionaire Next Door, the Johnny Lucases of the world, they play incredible defense.
So let's talk about some of those defense stats, specifically when it comes to the uniform of wealth, the suits and the watches. Because I feel like this is where the big hat mentality is most visible to everyone.
The data they collected here is just, it's hilarious, really.
Yeah.
They surveyed actual millionaires, people with a net worth between $1 and $10 million, and asked them about the most they ever paid for a suit.
Okay, and the popular image is what? Bespoke tailoring, Italian wool, the whole 9 yards.
Gordon Gekko style, right?
Exactly.
The reality, 50%, half of the millionaires they surveyed had never spent more than $399 on a suit.
$399. That is off the rack at a department store. That is not luxury.
It's pure utility. And get this, only 1% of millionaires had ever paid $2,800 or more for a suit.
So the people we think are wearing those suits actually aren't?
For the most part, no. And the watch stats are even more telling. We associate wealth with Rolex, Patek Philippe, Omega. But the #1 watch brand among the millionaires in the study,
Seiko.
Followed by Timex.
So why? Is it just that they don't care about nice things?
It's not that. It's that they don't care about the signal. A Paul looks at a $5,000 watch and they don't see status. They see opportunity cost.
What do you mean?
They see $5,000 that could be in an index fund compounding at 7% for the next 20 years. They see $20,000 of future money sitting on their wrist, losing value every single day. It's just a completely different mindset.
In this mindset, it manifests in how they manage their day-to-day finances. You'd think, if I had $1 million, the last thing I would do is sit down and make a budget.
Right. I'm rich. I don't need a budget.
But the book presents this paradox of that the wealthy budget more meticulously than the non-wealthy.
It's the jogger analogy they use.
Yeah.
If you go to the park, who do you see jogging? Usually it's people who are already pretty fit. And you might say to yourself, well, they don't need to jog. They're already in great shape. But the truth is, they are in great shape because they jog. The budgeting is the financial exercise that creates and maintains the wealth.
They profile a woman named Mrs. Rule to explain this. She's an auctioneer, another one of these dull professions, but she's a paw, and she uses this strategy called artificial scarcity. This is something I think anyone listening could actually apply today.
Artificial scarcity is brilliant. It's so simple. Mrs. Rule takes 15% of her income right off the top for investment. It never even hits her main checking account.
So she never sees it.
She never sees it. It's just gone. By doing that, she forces herself and her family to live on the remaining 85%. She creates an environment where she feels like she has less money than she actually does. It's a psychological trick she plays on herself.
And now contrast her with the other profile, Mr. Friend. This guy is the UAW archetype. He's the high earner who completely refuses to budget.
Mr. Friend literally tells the interviewers that budgeting is too depressing. He doesn't want to know where the money goes. His entire motivation is what they call competitive consumption.
What's that?
His reference group, the people he compares himself to, are other high spenders in his fancy neighborhood. He sees his neighbor get a new boat, so he feels like he needs a bigger boat. He is constantly running on this treadmill of anxiety.
And that anxiety piece is so crucial. We tend to think that more money solves anxiety, but for the UAW, more money actually creates more anxiety.
Because the lifestyle requires constant fueling. It's a beast that always needs to be fed. Mrs. Rule, on the other hand, she has what the authors call a go-to-hell fund.
Which is just the best name for a savings account ever.
It really is, and it's the ultimate psychological benefit of wealth. It's not about buying a yacht, it's about independence. A go-to-hell fund means you have enough money saved and invested that you can live for, say, 10 years without having to work another day.
So if your boss is toxic or your industry gets disrupted,
Or you just want to take a year off to write a book, you have the power to say no. You can say, go to hell. Mr. Friend cannot say no. He is a slave to his high income because his bills are nipping at his heels every single month.
this bleeds directly into how they spend their time. You'd assume the rich are out playing golf all day or shopping, but the paws are actually spending a lot of their free time on something much, much drier.
Financial and investment planning.
Yeah.
The authors found a direct correlation. Paws spend nearly twice as many hours per month planning their finances compared to UAWs.
Twice as many hours.
Yeah. They're researching investments, they're tracking their net worth, they're consulting with their accountant, they are actively managing their money.
And the UAWs, what are they doing with that time?
The UAWs spend their time worrying. They spend a lot of time stressing about their economic well-being, but they don't take any concrete action. It's a vicious cycle of paralysis and anxiety.
The book illustrates this perfectly with the tale of two doctors, Dr. North and Dr. South. It sounds like a fable, but it's based on real profiles they studied. Both are medical specialists making that mid-six-figure income.
Right, very similar on paper. Dr. North is the paw. He's the guy who drives the older car, lives in the modest house, and his net worth is in the millions. Dr. South is the UAW.
Big house, new luxury sedan every 2 years, country club membership.
All of it. And almost no accumulated wealth to show for his huge income. But the detail that really sticks with me is what they call the car shopping contrast.
This part blew my mind. Walk us through how these two men buy a car.
Okay, so Dr. South, the guy with no savings, decides he needs a new luxury car. He spends 60 hours, researching this purchase.
60 hours is a week and a half of full-time work.
It's a massive amount of time. He's reading the car magazines, he's visiting all the dealerships, he's negotiating the trim package, arguing over the color of the leather seats. He's investing a huge amount of his life energy into the act of spending money.
And he probably thinks he's being really smart because he negotiated $2,000 off the sticker price.
Exactly. In his mind, he won. But now look at Dr. North. He takes those same 60 hours of free time and he dedicates them to researching investments.
Not consumption.
Not consumption. Accumulation. He's looking at municipal bonds or a small commercial real estate deal or analyzing his pension plan options. Dr. South has become an expert in consumption. Dr. North has become an expert in accumulation.
One of them saves $2,000 on a rapidly depreciating asset.
While the other one probably makes $20,000 on an appreciating asset, you do that over and over again for 30 years. And that difference is everything. It's millions of dollars.
So since we're on the topic of cars, we have to go deeper into these status traps. The book devotes a huge section to cars because, in America, the car is still the primary signal of success for most people.
It is. It's the most visible status symbol by far. You can't see someone's bank account when they pull up next to you at a stoplight, but you can see that they're driving a brand new BMW.
And the chapter You Aren't What You Drive is basically a complete takedown of the luxury car industry.
It really is. The data shows, pretty overwhelmingly, that the majority of people you see driving those expensive luxury imports are not millionaires. They are high-income people engaging in aspirational consumption. They're UAWs.
So if the millionaires aren't driving the new Benz, what are they driving?
Mostly domestic sedans and trucks. Ford, Chevy, Toyota. But there is a very specific subgroup the authors identified, which I find fascinating. The used vehicle-prone shopper.
Okay, what does that mean?
These are millionaires who are, in the book's words, inoculated against the new car smell. They almost exclusively buy cars that are 2 or 3 years old.
Is that just to save a few bucks on the price?
It's much more strategic than that. It's to avoid the depreciation cliff. A new luxury car can lose 20 to 30% of its value the second you drive it off the lot. It's an insane financial hit.
Right.
So by buying a 3-year-old car, the millionaire lets the status seeker, the UAW, take that massive financial hit for them. The millionaire gets the same utility, a safe, reliable, comfortable car for 60% of the original price. They're essentially arbitraging the vanity of the underaccumulator of wealth.
That is brilliant. And this same logic extends to the biggest purchase of all, the home. the neighborhood trap. I feel like this is where most people lose the wealth-building game before they even get started.
The house determines everything. It is the first domino that knocks down all the rest of your finances. If you stretch to buy a house in a quote-unquote rich neighborhood, you are not just buying a house. You are buying into a whole consumption ecosystem.
Explain what you mean by that ecosystem.
Well, you can't park a 10-year-old rusty hatchback in the driveway of a $2 million home, can you?
Yeah.
The neighbors will talk. So you feel pressure to buy the luxury car. Then your kids can't go to the local public school because none of the neighbors' kids go there. So now you're paying for private school tuition. Then comes the expensive landscaping service, the interior designer, the vacations to Aspen because that's where everyone else goes. You are constantly trying to keep up with a reference group that might have triple your net worth. It's a game you can't win.
The authors have a very strict rule for this. Never purchase a home that requires a mortgage that is more than twice your household's total annual realized income.
Now, I know listeners are probably shouting at their speakers right now. In today's housing market, in a lot of major cities, finding a home for 2 times your income feels completely impossible.
It sounds totally archaic.
It is incredibly difficult today, no question.
Yeah.
But the principle is what matters. The math doesn't care about the housing market. If you are house poor, if 50% of your take-home pay is going to your mortgage and property taxes, you cannot accumulate wealth. It's just not possible.
So what's the alternative?
The data shows that half of the millionaires in America do not live in upscale neighborhoods. They live in boring middle-class or upper-middle-class neighborhoods where they are often the wealthiest people on the block.
And that gives them a huge psychological edge, doesn't it? They don't feel poor compared to their neighbors.
Exactly. They are the king of the cul-de-sac. They have zero pressure to upgrade their car or renovate their kitchen because they are already winning the local comparison game without even trying.
I want to pivot now to a section of the book that I think is probably the most controversial. It's about family, specifically something they call economic outpatient care, or EOC. This challenges every instinct a parent has.
Oh, yeah. This is the section that makes parents really squirm because we all want to help our kids. We want to give them a down payment for their first house or pay for the wedding or help with college tuition for the grandkids. It feels like the right thing to do.
It feels like love.
It does. But the data in this book is just brutal on this topic. The more cash gifts and subsidies you give an adult child, the less wealth they accumulate on their own.
It's a direct negative correlation.
It is. The authors call it weakening the weak. EOC basically acts as a consumption subsidy. If you give your 30-year-old child $20,000 a year, they almost never save or invest it. They treat it as income.
So they use it to qualify for a bigger mortgage or at least a nicer car than they could actually afford on their own salary.
Exactly. They become dependent on that drip feed. They never develop the financial muscles to budget and save and survive on their own. The parents are providing the capital, so the kids feel free to use 100% of their own earned income for consumption. They look rich, but their financial core is hollow.
There's a really tragic dynamic described in the book where parents often strengthen the weak.
This is the classic family drama. Let's say you have 2 adult kids. One is a discipline saver, maybe a teacher, doing really well for themselves within their means. The other is a spender, always finding himself, always struggling with credit card debt. Who do the parents help?
The one who's struggling.
Always. They give money to the weak child. But in doing so, they are validating the weakness. They are ensuring the child stays dependent. Meanwhile, the strong child gets nothing, which actually forces them to become even more independent and driven. The book argues that by subsidizing the underachiever, you are actively destroying their chance at building their own financial independence.
They have that great comparison between the children of teachers and the children of corporate executives.
Yes. Teachers typically don't have large lumps of cash to hand out to their kids. So their children grow up knowing from a very early age, if I want something, I have to go out and earn it myself.
There's no safety net.
Right. But the executives' kids often grow up seeing the country club membership and the fancy cars, and they just assume there is this bottomless pit of family resources. They spend their lives waiting for the inheritance. The teacher's kid goes out and builds their own inheritance.
So if you are successful and you want to avoid ruining your kids financially, what do? The book lays out these rules for raising productive children.
And the first rule is like Fight Club. You do not talk about your wealth.
You keep it a secret from your own children.
As much as you possibly can, for as long as you can. Never tell your children that the parents are wealthy. The goal is to raise them to be disciplined, frugal, and hardworking on their own merits before they ever know there's a big safety net waiting for them.
It's the anecdote about the king's rules. Dr. North again.
Yeah, his daughter, when she was young, created this poster of his household rules. And they were things like close the door, don't let the heat out, and turn off the lights when you leave a room.
Just simple domestic discipline.
Exactly. He lived frugally. He didn't just preach it, he modeled it for them every single day. He made absolutely sure that his kids were established in their own careers and living well within their own means before he ever revealed the full extent of his estate.
He didn't deprive them of the struggle.
That's the perfect way to say it. The struggle is the crucible. That's where character is built. If you remove the struggle, you remove the opportunity for character building.
Okay, we've talked about habits, spending, family. Let's close the loop with careers. We touched on Johnny the janitor, but is there a broader pattern here? Are most millionaires doctors and lawyers and CEOs?
You know, it's interesting. Those professions are certainly on the list, but the dull normal businesses are disproportionately represented.
Dull normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We think tech mogul or celebrity hedge fund manager, but the data points to things like welding contractors, pest controllers, mobile home park owners, paving and road construction companies.
So why those industries specifically?
I think it's two main reasons. One, there's less competition. Everybody wants to start a record label or a cool software company. Far fewer people are lining up to start a septic tank cleaning service.
Good point.
And two, it's that low status overhead we talked about with Johnny. If you own a mobile home park, nobody expects you to drive a Ferrari to work. You can keep your profits. You don't have to spend 30% of your net income just signaling your success to your peers.
And the power of self-employment in general seems to be a huge factor.
It's the accelerator. The book found that self-employed people are 4 times more likely to be millionaires than people who work for others.
4 times. Wow.
Because when you work for yourself, you control the expense line. You can minimize your taxable income legally through business expenses. And most importantly, you are building equity in an asset, the business itself, rather than just treating your time for a paycheck.
I want to end on a statistic that I found incredibly hopeful, because sometimes this whole topic can feel a bit exclusionary. You know, like, oh, well, the rich just get richer.
Right, the game is rigged.
But there's this one fact in the book that pushes back on that hard.
The self-made reality, 80%. 80% of American millionaires are first-generation rich.
They did not inherit their wealth.
They did not. They started with nothing or very little, and they built it over the course of a lifetime through the habits we've been talking about.
That just flies in the face of the cynicism we hear so often, that the game is rigged and you have to be born into the club to make it.
The club is open. The entry fee is discipline. That's the real message of this book. It's not about luck, and it's not about marrying rich or having rich parents. It's about a lifestyle of hard work, perseverance, and a whole lot of planning.
So let's wrap this all up. What is the single main message for the listener today? What's the takeaway?
I think the takeaway is that you have to audit your own definition of success. Are you chasing the big hat, or are you focused on building the cattle? The book really asks you to stop looking at your neighbor's shiny new SUV with envy. Instead, you should look at it with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right. You should be asking yourself, is that person actually wealthy? Or are they just drowning in debt to look the part?
Exactly. Chances are, the person in the 10-year-old Toyota sitting next to them at the stoplight is the actual millionaire. You cannot see wealth. Wealth is the money you don't spend. It's the assets you've accumulated, not the car you drive.
So I'll challenge everyone listening right now. Go do the math. Take your age, times your annual household income, and divide it by 10. It might be a painful number to look at, but that number is your starting line.
It's your benchmark.
Are you a PA, an underaccumulator, or somewhere in the middle? And if you find out you're a UAW, maybe it's time to stop worrying about what the Joneses are doing and start building that go-to-hell fund.
It's never too late to start playing better defense.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.